Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Ferguson here, your modern mortgage loan advisor. Today we're talking about not 10, five myths that you've got that you hear all the time about getting qualified for a mortgage. We're going to break them down step by step. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, before I get there, please like or subscribe. And then I do these videos based on suggestions that you guys give me. So give me some suggestions on videos you'd love to see and drop some notes in the chat. All right, let's get started. So the very first one is, you can't afford to be a homeowner. Guys, this is a total misnomer. This is simply not true. And let me explain. When you buy a home and you get a mortgage loan for it, you go through all those different things and you start paying on that mortgage payment, there's very little difference, generally speaking, between rent and your new mortgage payment. As long as you're buying a reasonably priced house in a neighborhood at a tax rate and everything that you like, there's not going to be a ton of difference. A lot of people don't consider two really important things when it comes to home ownership versus renting. First part is when you're paying rent, taxes, insurance, maintenance, lawn care, all that stuff is built into what you're paying in rent. The landlord has already figured those things out. He's already done the math around it. And that's how he came up with the amount of rent that he needs to get on the property that you're leasing from him. So don't think you're not paying it. You certainly are. Number two, as a homeowner, you get benefits that you don't get as a renter. Number one, usually you get appreciation year over year on owning that home. That means just by you living in it, waking up in the morning, eating breakfast, you're making money every single day because that home increases in value. That's the first part. The second part is taxes. Listen, in the beginning, when you're making your mortgage payment, you're paying a lot of interest, and that interest can be written off of your tax returns. So there's benefits there that you guys need to think about that help when you own a home versus when you rent. When you want to rent, you're at the top tax bracket. You don't have anything to write off. It's just a lot more expensive. So I don't want you guys to get caught up and think that you can't afford a house because it costs more than rent. In the long run, it actually costs a lot less. You make a lot more money owning a home. Plus, it's yours. You get to do what you want to with it. So that's the first myth. Let's go on to myth number two. You have to have good credit to buy a home. My goodness, you do not have to have good credit to buy a home. Let's talk about where it is today. So right now, you don't have to have any credit scores to buy a home. There's programs that exist out there that as long as you can prove alternative credit, like you pay child care, you've got, you pay a furniture note, you pay a cell phone bill, you can get qualified for a mortgage just proving that you paid those things on time and don't have any credit at all. But if you have credit, you can get credit or for a mortgage loan with less than perfect credit by far. So for example, FHA right now is low as a 500 credit score. VA, if you're a veteran, doesn't have a minimum credit score requirement. It's based on your overall credit itself. So you have a lot of options even with less than perfect credit. And even in a situation where it may not be as attractive as you want it to be, there's a solution to buy the home, get into it, fix your credit, and then refinance it later. So there's always a strategy there, regardless of what your credit score happens to be. Just keep those things in mind. Do not have to have perfect credit to buy a house. Number three, you have to have a lot of money to buy a home. That is not true. You can get into a home right now with pretty much zero money out of pocket. Let me explain. There's down payment assistance programs. Those programs will pay the down payment on your behalf. There are grants. Some of them are a second lien. There's a lot of different variations there. But the fact of the matter is you can get in with zero down using down payment assistance. Or if you're a veteran, that's 100% financing, which is awesome. Thank you, veterans, for your service. I'm proud of service as well. Number three, you could get a USDA loan. That's a loan for kind of more of a rural area. That's 100% financing there. So all those programs require no money down for out-of-pocket expenses or any of those things. And then they allow the seller to cover all of your closing costs, which is awesome. So truly, you can get in with next to no money down on buying a home. If you're motivated, have decent credit, then that is certainly an option for you guys to pull the trigger and get yourself into a home and quit renting if you're renting right now. Start building equity, start building wealth. Residential real estate is the number one way to do that. All right. Renting is cheaper than buying a home. Now, remember, I talked about this before. All right. I'm going to go kind of a different route here that renting is cheaper than buying a home. Now, if you're renting a house, think about just renting in general. Is that house built to the highest standards? Maybe. Do you think apartment complexes are always built for efficiency? If you're paying utility bills on your apartment, you probably realize that's not the case. And I'm not speaking to everybody here, but there's things you have to start thinking about. If you were a landlord, would you build it out in a way where it was super efficient, had all these great fixtures and everything else if you were going to rent it out? Maybe not. So your utilities could be less. Your insurance may be less. Your taxes, even though you don't see taxes when you're paying rent, it's built into your rental payment. So your taxes could be better. All those things are a great way to think about, is homeownership less than renting? And the simple answer is most of the time it's about the same, maybe slightly more, but you end up being way better off when you look at homeownership versus renting. Now, I mentioned number one before, and I want to revisit that. Can you afford home ownership? Most people don't think about, from a home perspective, if you've got a yard, you got to mow it. There may be some additional utility costs there. If you've got, HOA fees, all those things. It's still very affordable, very little difference in regards to owning a home versus renting. And it's still a much better, generally speaking, financial decision to go and buy versus rent. So don't be discouraged with those things, okay? I know I kind of crossed over between number 1 and number 4, but I wanted you guys to have that information. The last and final one, this one's a really big one right now, is student loans will keep you from buying a home. That is not true. Listen, everybody's got student loans today. It's pretty hard to find somebody that doesn't have student loans. The beautiful thing is there's lots of opportunity to count a very low payment on those student loans, and it's even possible not to count a payment depending on the program that you're on. So there are some government organizations or some certain jobs where your student loan debt gets forgiven. If we can prove those things, a lot of times we have to count it. Or if you're on a specified repayment plan that's either income-based or under a certain product, as long as we can prove that it's a fully amortized student loan, then we can count that lower payment. Even if you don't have any of those things, FHA only counts 0.5% for your mortgage payment per month. So those payments are going to be very, very low, and VA is even lower than that. They take a percentage and divide it, and it's a low payment. So no, student loans by themselves are not going to prevent you from getting into a mortgage loan. They may impact your debt to income ratios or maybe how much you qualify for, but overall, it shouldn't be a substantial impact on your ability to buy a home and get where you want to go. So to reiterate, I went over 5 things. Homeownership's unaffordable. Not true. Basic stuff, lawnmower, HOA, all those things, you got to have it, but not a big deal. You have a good credit, you have to have good credit to buy a home? Definitely not true. We do low credit scores all the time. Number 3, you have to have a lot of money to buy a home? Definitely not true. We do down payment assistance and zero down loans constantly. Renting is cheaper than buying a home. In the short term, it may feel that way, but in the long term, you're going to come out way further ahead. 9 out of 10 times, it's going to look a lot better in the long term. And then number 5, student loans will keep you from buying a home. Again, that's a misnomer. Guys, don't fall for these myths. You need to talk to somebody. I would be happy to talk to you about this and get you situated and answer your questions, run some numbers, and make sure you look good for home ownership. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.